All right, everybody, it's Unit 6. We're talking about punctuation on steroids and maxing out on grammar. My videos keep getting interrupted because people keep coming in my room, so hopefully I'll be able to get to this without getting any interruptions. Anyway, so Unit 6, we're going to focus on punctuation rules on steroids, meaning we're going to do some deep dives into the big boys of commas and semicolons and colons and dashes. We're going to look at weird punctuation marks that we didn't know actually existed, and we're also going to max out on grammar by looking at some other really complex structures that not everybody uses or understands as we kind of like look at all this together in Unit 6. So today we're going to take a look at some exceptions to the rules of coordination. So we're going to take some basic notes and do some practice with these skills I'm going to show you today. So here we go. So as we talk about coordination, in English, coordination means that I'm making a pair or something which is equal on either side, and I'm joining them together with some kind of conjunction, like a coordinated conjunction, like a fanboy, for example. I might even sneeze. I don't know. I could feel something happening. All right. That's weird. Anyway, so our simple punctuation rule that we have is that for nearly all compound pairs of words, phrases, and clauses, I knew I had to sneeze. Within a sentence, we use no comma with that conjunction. All right, so this is a rule that we've had before, but let's just talk about it. So we talk about a pair. We have a pair of words. If I said something like giddy with excitement over the start of another project, Kayla quickly grabbed Maddie and Noah for her team. Well, this would be two direct objects joined together with that word and you'll notice there's no comma after the word Maddie. I'll see if I can bring up my little pointer here. There we go. So no comma after Maddie because this is just simply two direct objects. That's pretty easy. Now, in terms of phrases, phrase is something being a little bit more complex to it. But once again, if it's a pair, there's no comma. So if I said Chase sighed at the thought of another project and at the thought of Bryce as his partner. In this case, we have prepositional phrases that are being joined by that word and. It's not a compound sentence. We're not adding a comma after the word project. We're just simply joining two series of prepositional phrases with that word and. If I had a pair of clauses, and typically this happens with noun or nominal clauses, but if I said Madison wondered who would try speaking in English, Madison wondered who would help her get the best grade on the project and who would be her most compatible partner. Both those are really serving as direct objects. They're noun clauses, but they're direct objects. You can almost imagine these two big trees in direct object slots. But once again, I'm not putting a comma after the word project because I simply have two direct objects. All right, and so this is not a compound sentence at all. So that's the basic punctuation rule that we have. But you'll notice that it says for nearly all compound pairs, meaning sometimes you have a pair and there's an exception to that pairing. So let's take a look at some weird exceptions that we have. Here's the first one I want you to write down. But you can actually use a comma with the word but when you're actually creating a pair. So, for example, if I wrote, Avea tried to be positive, comma, but still struggled to pretend to enjoy the NASCAR race. Well, I normally wouldn't put a comma here because the word but is simply joining two verbs. Avea tried and Avea struggled. And the word but is sort of joining them together. But in English, people say, well, doesn't that create a contrast? And so you can put a comma in this sentence to show the contrast. And that's a rule that we have. I'm not a fan of the rule, but it's a rule that you have that you can do a comma, but to show the contrast. The reason I'm not a fan of the rule is because the word but, in my opinion, already is a contrasting word. So therefore, I don't need the comma, in order to show a contrast. The other reason I don't like this rule is you can only do it with the comma but. You can't do a comma yet, which is really weird because yet is also a contrasting word, but it isn't one of the exceptions that we have in the English language. So you can use a comma but if you want to join two words or phrases or clauses together to show a contrast. Some people say, well, aren't you really kind of making a compound sentence? Aren't you kind of saying Avea tried to be positive, but she still struggled? Well, this to me is a dangerous and slippery slope. If you start imagining words which are not really in the sentence, then you can start convincing yourself there's all kinds of words in there and start putting punctuation in that doesn't really need to be in the sentence. So I try to avoid this idea of it being sort of an understood subject. I don't think that's really valid, but you'll hear some grammarians sort of validate this use of the comma for that reason. I don't think it's very valid at all. Here's another exception we have. The next one I want you to write down is the comma and. Another exception we have in the English language is use the comma and. And a comma and is used when you have a pair, but what if you want to give special emphasis to the second half of a pairing? So if I said, I didn't believe him and said so, well, really what you have are two verbs. You have I, first verb, didn't believe, and second verb, I said so. But if I want to stress the second verb more than the first verb, I can add a comma with that and it gives special emphasis to the second element of that pair. So therefore, if I want to stress the second half more than the front half, I add a comma with that and. Once again, it only happens with the word and to do a comma and. And the only reason you would do it is if you want the back half to be more important than the front half. Because typically the word and is joining two halves which are equally important. So all you're doing is giving emphasis to the second half. If I said Kyle's new Nike shoes were unique and expensive, if I really want to stress the expensive, not just to be unique, but they were unique and expensive, and you really want to hit that word expensive more, once again, you can do a comma and. But I have a better solution than this. So I'm going to recommend the third exception that we have is using a dash. A dash with an and is so much cooler and it does the same job. So if I said, I didn't believe him and said so, or Kyle's new Nike shoes were unique and expensive, a dash and is a great exception to the rule as a way of making a pairing but showing that the back half of the pair is more emphasized than the front half. So the dash and the comma and are exactly the same. I just think the dash and is cooler. But once again, you can have a dash and, but you can't have a dash but or a dash yet or any other dashes other than a dash and. Kind of weird. The next one is what we call the serial comma. Sometimes it's referred to as the Oxford comma or the Harvard comma. So this happens in a series, and that's how we get the word serial. You are killing me. What's up?
Keep going. Check them out when